They're done. Oh no, she looks so sad.
It's like I'm playing T-ball. These guys are making it way too easy for me. Who would have guessed the shitification of your major franchises would have a negative impact on your future? The games industry is about to lose everything, and these guys have no clue why. They're sitting around scratching their heads, watching it all burn down, seeing more studio closures, more layoffs.
Skill issue, rip bozo. If you can't survive, it is what it is. Happens all the time with streamers and YouTubers. You don't produce good content, people are going to unsubscribe and stop watching you.
They're blaming it on market trends, on financial indicators, on aggressive competition. I mean, they're right on the competition part.
But competition is supposed to breed better games, not make games worse because you just can't put in the effort.
They're not laying any of the blame at their own feet. They're taking no responsibility for their choices or for their own games. Bobby Kotick, everybody's favorite former gaming CEO, is now tied up in a legal battle, and he just confirmed a 60% decline in post-acquisition Activision.
60% post-Activision? Dude, I remember I was playing Classic, and there was a guy that was like, I don't want to say, like, I don't want to be mean, but he was a really nice person, and he was always like a massive corpo dick sucker. And I don't know why. Like, I would get into fights with him in like Discord, like fucking, you know, typing battles, and like people would like, you know, watch us like get into arguments. Nothing ever bad happened. Like, nothing bad happened. We just stopped talking. But my point is, I remember when the acquisition happened, which was in like 2021 or 2020. And the guy was like, wow, they're going to make WoW and Minecraft so much better. I mean, like, look at Minecraft. After the Microsoft acquisition of Minecraft, it got so much better. Like, Blizzard's just going to go up from there. And I said, no, it's not. No, it's not. You're going to be wrong in 5 years. And then now, look at me. Look at me now, bitch. I'm right. You're wrong. Is it the same dude who was slurping glurping in Warcraft 3 Reforged? Yes, actually, I'm not even kidding. This is so funny too. I remember, and I'm not a person who's going to throw away a friendship over like a disagreement of like how bad video games are, but it just irked me so much that I remember it to this day. To this day, I remember this guy who was just a corpo glug sucking dude who just played, he probably still plays Blizzard games to this day. He loves it, just loves that shit. And there, chat, keep in mind, for every one guy, there's like 10 more of those that you could find out in the wild that just defend corpo acquisitions and shitting up your game. You can just find him out there in the wild.
This guy goes out and he says that the investors should be thanking him for having the foresight to see the decline in the company that he was running.
Yep.
Understanding market headwinds. And also having the knowledge that the games industry was eventually and inevitably going to get smaller. This dude literally sold Microsoft a Trojan horse and is just sitting...
Honestly, that's so based. He literally sold them a ticking time bomb. He got out, got his like third or fourth yacht and was like, all right, I'm out of here, guys. Yeah, he's like, all right, see you.
Back like, damn, man.
He doesn't have to worry about that.
That's tough. The games industry is about to eat its just desserts. This is the bed that these guys have made for...
I thought he was going to say eat its ass, man. I've got internet brain rot. I thought he was going to eat its ass.
Themselves. If you take the time to think about it, every single one of these companies is built around a couple of key franchises, and that's really all that they have anymore. And that's Activision, that's EA, that's Ubisoft, that's Capcom. That's almost every single company that's out there.
Dude,
these guys have been chasing each other's tails for so long, and now these games are failing. They're failing alongside them, and these guys have no way out. So today, I'm going to talk about why that is. But before that, a word from today's sponsor, my cat. Actually, it's Starforge. Today's video is sponsored by Starforge Systems, and honestly, the timing matters right now. PC parts are surging, availability keeps getting worse, and for a lot of people, building piece by piece just isn't an option anymore. If you guys have been thinking about upgrading, this is one of those moments where waiting is actively going to cost you more money. Starforge builds high-quality white glove PCs across the board, from full tower powerhouses to clean mid-range systems and compact form factor builds. Their custom cases and collaborative designs are some of the slickest ones that are out there, with tons of options depending on what you want your setup to look like, not just how it performs. Everything is assembled with real attention to detail by people that genuinely know what they are doing. That's what you want in this industry. If you guys want a PC that is built right while looking good, this is your opportunity. Check out Starforge Systems using the link in the description.
Cute. I like that.
You guys have heard this line for years. Players are the problem.
Oh my god, is that New World?
For this overly needy, whiny audience that's glued to our favorite franchises.
Did they shut this shit down?
Constantly complaining, not because anything is actually wrong with the game, but because we're just impossible to please. And you know what?
You think customers are impossible to please when things like McDonald's are like the #1 restaurant in the world? You're what?
You know, I'll give them this. There's some truth to that. There's always that crowd that just can't pull themselves away from a single game. But
then they eat that sloppa like it's their fucking job.
Their taste profiles.
Restaurant. Yes, McDonald's is technically a restaurant. I know, it's a fucking mind-blowing thing.
About as deep as a puddle, but that's not most players, and that's definitely not most criticism. More often than not, those complaints for a lot of these long-running franchises are painfully consistent. It's performance, identity, direction, the same things year after year, and publishers either just ignore it outright, convincing themselves that the players just don't know what they're talking about. They'll pretend that every single change that they make is actually secretly brilliant because it's helping their bottom line, or worse off, they just don't care at all because the money keeps coming and they think that it always will. And have things changed? That money has finally slowed. The cracks started to spread, and the disaster they swore would never happen is now unfolding in slow motion. Long enough for the players to enjoy being right, and also long enough for these companies to feel every single mistake they refuse to own.
I feel like all of it culminated in 2020, and we're finally seeing the fruits of their labor, the labor that is rotten and corrupted and low effort, and it's finally coming to fruition.
One of the clearest warning signs that we've had recently is the outright failure of Call of Duty. Player numbers have been sliding for years. Interest in the franchise has steadily started to dry up online, and with the release of Black Ops 7, we've hit what is easily the lowest point in the franchise's history. Now, I ran the numbers back when Black Ops 7 first launched. Black Ops 6 opened up to around 315,000 concurrent players on Steam. Black Ops 7 barely cracked 100,000 players. That's nearly a 70% decline right out of the gate. Stack that on top of reports from the UK showing a 61% decline in physical sales. And
I mean, to be fair, physical sales are not a great metric at this point. I think physical sales already started declining by around about, I want to say 2013 to 14. I think the last time I bought a physical copy was probably 2015 or 16. Yeah.
I thought it was obvious. This franchise has roughly lost nearly 60% of its audience in a single year. Now, I got to take a quick victory lap here because I had a lot of people that were telling me that I was wrong. I had people making videos about me, tweeting about me. Steam isn't everything, they would say.
You're so
and
popular.
Now I have one of the biggest gaming executives in this industry's history coming out and saying the exact same.
I know, you feel so validated, don't you? It's like the best feeling ever.
Same thing under oath. In an article from IGN titled Bobby Kotick claims Activision, Call of Duty, and consoles are doing so poorly, it proves he was right to sell Activision Blizzard to Microsoft for $69 billion.
I want to shove this article in that guy's face, but I'm not the kind of person that would do that when there's no bad blood between us. I would if I fucking hated that person that I fucking argued with, but I just can't do it. I just want them to know I'm right. I'm right. I feel so vindicated that when they acquired it, it literally said, I literally said, it's not going to fix Blizzard. It's going to make it worse. 69, nice. Oh yeah, 69 billion. It's hot.
Shots fired.
Sexy.
First IGN.
See, that's the boomer 6'7". You guys can't make fun of them, by the way. You can't make fun of kids for saying 6'7" when you say 69.
And talks about Bobby Kotick responding to an investor lawsuit that's tied to the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Investors claim that Kotick rushed the sale to launch to protect his own position and cash out hundreds of millions of dollars while also...
Based? Well, yeah, I mean, if the fucking ship's going down and there's a fire, I'm gonna fucking throw everyone else overboard and try to sell the ship before it goes into fucking flames.
Shielding himself from the fallout that's tied to Activision's misconduct scandals, Kotick denies all wrongdoing and argues that the deal was justified. And as part of his response, he goes as far as accusing Embracer Group of secretly benefiting from the lawsuit, a claim that Embracer has flatly denied.
What?
I looked into this myself, and honestly, it just goes to show just how
Throwing
garbage the
everyone under
games
the
industry
bus.
is nowadays. Kotick isn't just defending the lawsuit here. He's claiming that the whole thing is basically a proxy war. He's arguing that Embracer is working the angles behind the scenes, the investor lawsuit, and even the union pressure that was behind the misconduct are all a part of a broader effort to weaken Activision. His proof is that a former executive from Embracer is now working for one of the unions. I guess this is the games industry today.
That's a stretch.
Essentially corporate Game of Thrones. This is the red wedding of video game sales, I guess. Less focus on the games and a lot more time spent maneuvering, posturing, lawyering up. This is all just pathetic to me. IGN continues by saying Kotick is using the declining performance of Activision Call of Duty in the console market as a whole as proof that selling the company when he did was the right move. And
it absolutely was. That guy, I think there's a running anecdote that he himself talked about in interviews where he took his mom's like cigarette ashtray, because back in the day they had like pretty ashtrays that you could like resell, and he resold them at the market to like make money to buy other things in order to make more money as a kid. This guy is like, I don't know how to describe it, but like it's like he's like a little gremlin. He just makes more money. He loves money. He knows what he's doing.
there's one quote in particular here that's getting a lot of attention right now. Kotick would go on to say, today, given that console sales are at an all-time low and Call of Duty sales are off over 60% from the prior year, plaintiffs should be expressing extreme gratitude for the foresight Activision leadership demonstrated in consummating this transaction.
He's a goblin? You can't say that. That's anti-Semitic. That Hogwarts Legacy told me.
Only this dude would be the one to walk into a court case and casually claim that he had the foresight to see his own flagship franchise collapse alongside the rest of the industry and then present that as some kind of win. He's basically saying that he knowingly sold Xbox a Trojan horse, cashed out before it all fell apart, and now...
I can't believe he admits to that, like under oath. He's like, yeah, I did it. What up? What of it?
Everybody should be thanking him.
Honestly, he's like the pinnacle, like, antagonist. Like, they're like, yeah, you murdered a bunch of people. Like, you know, you're in a video game. Oh, you murdered a bunch of people. You blew up this building. I don't know, you blew up a hospital. And he's like, yeah. And? Like, he's a supervillain. Like, yeah, he's like, what? Yeah, I'll admit it under oath. I did fucked up shit. I don't give a fuck. I'm not saying he did that, but, like, yeah, it's just we're Bobby's world. We're just living in it, for sure.
For getting out early, and honestly, I guess from an investor standpoint, he's not
denying
wrong.
It.
That was frustrating is how this article then immediately tries to cover for Call of Duty. I don't know why these guys still keep doing this. IGN starts hedging for the developers, saying that they don't know where Kotick got these numbers from and that they should be factoring in Game Pass as the...
You really think he would just lie to do that? I just don't think he would do that. Why wouldn't you admit that, like, you sold it under the best, like, possible moment in time before it crashes, before it starts declining, in order to make the max amount? Like, he literally min-maxed the company. Because 2020, that's when I think Shadowlands came out, and yeah, that was like around about the time where Activision was really like taking a fat shit and it was just starting to fall apart. Like the COVID bubble was just hitting its apex.
Explanation for the sales drop, as if we haven't heard this excuse 100,000 times by now. Actually, now that I think about it, that falls apart in the exact same article. Only a few paragraphs later, they point out that Xbox hardware sales are down 70% year over year. If people aren't buying the hardware, then you're not... And that
shows in the culture of, like, the public zeitgeist, like, how much people are actively bringing up, like, Xbox. I feel like people meme more about PlayStation because more people have a PlayStation. It's just an effect of, like, would you rather get memed on and still have sales, or not have people talk about your video game console at all? Yeah, like, it makes sense.
not magically gaining subscribers. Those players don't just materialize out of thin air. So where exactly are those new player numbers coming from? I'm going to tell you right now, that's not coming from PC. PC is not the one making up the difference here. We already know what happens when an
mobile gaming
actually good game
That's
launches on both Steam and Game Pass. Steam still posts record sales numbers and player numbers every single time. So no, there's not some hidden success story here. This franchise is losing relevance, and people are scrambling to explain it away instead of just...
I saw a meme on Instagram the other day that was like making fun of like quote-unquote unks and like boomers, and they're like, okay, unk, go play on your PlayStation 3. And then I thought to myself, like, yeah, nobody fucking makes that joke about like, oh, go play on your Xbox 360. Like, if you want to insult someone about like having like a like being old, it's like, oh, unk, go launch up your PS4, your PS3. I got my PS5. You're just old.
Admitting what's actually happening right in front of them.
The memes.
IGN then goes to point out that Kotick didn't just repeat the 60% decline, he doubled down on it. In his response, he outright admits that Activision had been missing their own long-range term targets for years, and that the board knew about those targets and knew they were unrealistic when the deal was made. As he puts it, the company has historically missed nearly all of its ambitious targets set forth in its long-range plans, a fact known by the board when the deal was negotiated. Going further to say, all told, had the deal not gone through, this likely would have resulted in a substantially lower stock price, as easily established by Activision's financial performance post-closing, which had been far below the ambitious targets contained in the plans. Now, I hope it isn't controversial for me to say.
We thought we could make money forever at the same rate as we were back like 5 years ago, and now it's crumbling.
That if you continually miss your long-range targets, maybe your targets might be a little bit too far downrange. Maybe your expectations might be a little bit too high. Yep. I can't imagine how that could negatively impact the games industry. This means that Activision Blizzard has likely been sliding for years, at least the last 4 years.
If you played any Blizzard games, like Activision or like otherwise, you could just tell immediately. And people saw the writing on the wall, and there's a lot of people who are still addicted to like certain video games like COD or, you know, Diablo and freaking World of Warcraft, of course, and Hearthstone. Like, it's been going down for years. It's just people like plugged up their ears. They were like, no. Like the guy that I was arguing with years back in like COVID times, they were shutting shit down left and right and kicking people off. But it's like, la, I don't care, blah, 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 blah. Just keep making slop. I'll eat it anyway. Nom, 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 nom. Tasty sloppa.
Kotick saw that, he knew that, and he took advantage of an overvalued moment for the company, and he got out. Not a huge fan of the guy, but it's definitely a gangster move, and I gotta respect it. But this is what executives do. This is what happens when the games don't matter, the product doesn't matter, the players don't matter. The only thing that matters is how good you look from the outside looking in, regardless of what's rotting underneath. And at least from an investor's perspective and from Microsoft's perspective, valuing them at $70 billion, everything looked just great, but it actually wasn't. This also means that their audience never actually grew. Any resurgence that we ever saw for Call of Duty or World of Warcraft or Overwatch, that was just returning players that were coming back, not new ones that were being created. That's how you miss your long-range targets, because you're not stacking new players on top of your existing players. Eventually, when you're just bringing back the same audience, that audience degrades over time because people either phase out of the game or phase out of gaming entirely.
Or even better, I wouldn't even say aging out is a thing, because people played WoW back in the day, like in 2008 and 2007. They already had kids. They had toddlers. They had teenagers. Maybe they had adults or young adult kids who like grew up and they played alongside them with, like, for example, like, I think Aspen got his mom into WoW, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. But, like, they played together. All of his friends played, for example. It doesn't matter what age you are. If the game is good, then the game is good. It's generational. It's just, it is what it is. Like, I don't think it matters if you age out or not. If you're a true gamer, you're not gonna stop playing just because you popped out a kid, or like, I don't know, you got a job or career change. Like, you're gonna want to make time. It's just that people don't want to make time for games because they fucking suck. That's really what it is at the end of the day.
Age out of it in some cases, age out of that genre maybe. And that's the reason why their catalog got smaller. That's why their microtransactions went up, because they weren't making nearly enough money and they had to tighten their purse strings to be able to do so. They essentially just kept turning up the dial as players filtered out because it was the only lever that these guys had left. Kotick is saying that this is a broader market trend. He saw the headwind shifting and he got out. This is the collapse that we're seeing.
Which is funny because like you should keep watching what he invests into. Again, I do think that he's nefarious. All he cares about is money. But I think that it's a good indicator. Like, what could be like a good analogy for this? It's like you're gonna follow a lion or like a vulture. You're gonna see where the vultures are circling in order to find the corpse, in order to find out what's going on, right? Like, that doesn't make the vulture evil inherently, because it's just doing what it's gotta do. And in this case, this guy only cares about money. I would say it's more of a nefarious because he's not an animal, and animals just want to eat food. His food is money, essentially.
In the games industry right now.
Yeah.
Companies that started off strong, they had franchises that meant something, but over time, developers got replaced with bachelor's degrees in business. The players got replaced with shareholders.
Yes.
And the game stopped being about something that you were building, and instead they became something that you were just trying to profit from. Strip it down, sell it off, move on to the next one, repeat over and over and over again. And when you start to think about that,
you can also chalk this up or compare it to the automotive industry. I found out through some random ass video, I forget what it was about, maybe it was just generally about cars. I found out that a lot of cars, like car companies, are owned by other car companies that I used to think were like all separated. Like, for example, Volkswagen is like owned by another company because like they're going under, and it's owned by like Mercedes. I don't remember which one it is or whatever. That's not the point. But like, it used to be each company was owned individually, but now we're just like taking apart these car companies and just reselling them to like ones that are, you know, left over or they have more money. Like, it doesn't matter. And then they ruin that company because they're putting in their values or their engines, or it's not unique anymore at that point because you're just putting in different carcasses or amalgamating them into like this abomination, and it's not about it being individualistic or individual. Yeah. Fiat owned a Ferrari for a long while. Yeah, like, I don't want to get into it because I don't have like the facts on the screen, but yeah, essentially it's just all just like a conglomerate
pattern. You start to see it across the entire industry. So right now we're watching a shift that's happening across the entire industry. The old guard, the companies used to dominate every conversation, and also our wallets are losing relevance fast, and new leaders are now taking their place. We're moving away from Xbox, Sony, EA, Activision, Ubisoft, and now towards From Software, Larian, Sandfall, Grinding Gear Games, Embark, people like that. And the reason this is happening right now is pretty simple. The way that AAA has been running is completely at odds with how the games industry actually works. Something that we haven't really ever taken the time to talk about on this channel is games fail constantly, way more than they ever succeed. Steam's own revenue distribution shows that out of the tens of thousands...
And it's funny because it's ironic that I think the biggest thing I learned about like people who want to launch big multiplayer games like MMOs or MOBAs is that the risk reward is really, really sparse. And what happens is they don't want to invest into like an MMO multiplayer because it's a lot of money up front and like the success rate is really low. But then they pull this shit and they churn out so many crap games that it's like, why didn't you just invest money into like a good game and put in a lot of effort and it would be a massive success at this point? It's just like, it's just so counterintuitive to me now in hindsight.
Of games that we see released every single year, nearly 70% of them make less than $1,000. Around 40% of them don't even recoup the $100 publishing fee just to get listed. Only about 5% of them sell between 10 and 50,000 copies. And
I could also chalk this up to like not having enough advertising or people playing a game, because there's a lot of diamonds in the rough that just don't have the pull or the reach to like realize that it's a good game. That happens a lot with indie games, to be honest. I don't think AAA has an excuse with how much money they can dump into advertising to not make it to the eyes of the public.
Only 2% of them, actually just under 2% of them, actually clear 100,000 copies sold. When you get into making games, failure is supposed to be the default assumption. You plan around it, you stick within your means, you expect things not to work out, and then when they don't, your studio...
You can say that about streaming too. You have to expect to fail and not make any money for a good long while. Because striking gold, like right off the bat, if you just turn on stream, you have 1,000 viewers, that's like insanely lucky, or like your audience came from somewhere else. It's impossible almost. You have to be exceptionally lucky, and it's like crazy how little that happens overall, to be honest. Or it's like an agency thing. I mean, I'm not talking about VTubers, I'm just talking about streaming in general.
Will still survive. That's how independent and indie developers think. It's baked into their culture. Now, what's wild is that this is the exact principle that the rest of the industry has seemingly abandoned. They just stopped planning for failure. They stopped respecting risk, and they built companies that only function if everything goes perfectly right every single time. I think this is something that's coming from the beginnings of the games industry. A lot of these companies just got way too big too fast off the back of insanely successful games released back to back. These guys just didn't have to ever sit with failure for very long. They went on legendary runs, but once that success hit, they ended up corporatizing. They brought in a lot of middle management after their companies exploded, and they started adding layers. And suddenly you have...
Well, it's like the too big to fail fallacy. It's like, well, how could I fail if I'm just going to get pumped full of money again? I could make the analogy with, I don't know, being like a VTuber, and say you came out and you have a massive agency like propping you up, but your personality sucks and they just keep pumping you full of assets, or I don't know, like they make events for you, but it's like ultimately at the core you're not an entertaining person, so why the fuck would we watch you if you're not interesting?
More people whose job it was not to make games, but instead to manage their growth, protect their revenue, and keep their shareholders happy. That shift made these companies increasingly dependent on predictable success. Massive franchises essentially just became their safety net, and for a long time, that ended up working for a lot of these companies because the industry was a lot smaller. There were a lot fewer games, and there really weren't a lot of games that were being made outside of the umbrella of AAA. EA had a lot of its sports games, and its Battlefield, and its Dragon Age. Activision had Call of Duty, Xbox had Halo, Gears, Fable, Ubisoft had Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and the Tom Clancy lineup. These were their pillars, but the bigger these companies got, the heavier they leaned on those pillars, and they made them fragile. Next thing you know, the reliance that they had wasn't just increasing their risk, it was slowly hollowing out the games that they kept making. What this has led to is a lot of these companies just continuing to make the exact same game, and when you keep pumping out the same thing...
Whoa, Dog Robot, I've never seen that before in a video game. Is that like COD 1 or 2 or 3? Whoa, I've never seen that.
In succession, optimizing it for revenue, these games just get filtered down until there's nothing left. It's the copy of a copy problem. Every iteration strips more out until you're just left with the shape and none of the substance. I don't know if any of you guys have seen this right now, but a lot of people are talking about Black Ops 2 maps and Black Ops 7, showing that they're the same layouts. And
you want to know the best part is you can't put this or whatever the fuck. This skin you can't put into the new game. You have to buy the skin again. Isn't that wild how like they get away with that shit? Imagine League of Legends, instead of having seasons, you had to buy a new copy of League of Legends and then it just resets all your skins and you can't get them again. Dude, people would be so pissed. The old one looks better. It does! It looks way cleaner. It like has a more realistic look to it too, which is surprising because this looks like it was made in like 2016, maybe 15.
Same name, and somehow all the personality is gone. Everything looks washed out, sterile, corporate. People are putting up
That's true too. I didn't even realize it has like an actual gradient to it.
Screenshots side by side saying Black Ops 7 on my $7,500 gaming PC versus Black Ops 2 on my $30 Xbox 360 from 2010. And these guys are right. It looks like garbage. It looks like an imitation of what they used to be. And this is what it looks like when value is stripped out of these games because the game itself just isn't the focus anymore.
Bro, that's
Activision now is probably the clearest
man.
Example we have outside of Ubisoft. They didn't always look like this. Their games used to have a ton of personality. They used to be some of the most original in the entire industry. They used to have a huge back catalog, a broad catalog of games. They helped publish and market smaller games. They took big swings, but as the company grew, middle management ballooned, public investment became the priority, stability...
I think they should do a 9/11 Black Ops. Or just like a Modern Warfare. That would be fucking sick. Like a fantasy one.
Mattered way more than their range, and Call of Duty became the only anchor they had that was able to hold everything together.
Let you fly the planes? No. No, man. I mean, wait. You know what? That would actually be really cool. It would.
For a long
No, Alana, no. Oh my fucking god, man. Guys, it's been 25 years. We can't make jokes now.
time, Call of Duty was big enough to absorb failure. A game could miss, another one could underperform, and it really didn't matter that much. But when you're a publicly traded company, growth is never enough, and it's not an option to ignore. You are obligated to keep pushing it. So more money gets poured into the safest thing that they have on the board. Risk gets avoided. Other IP gets tossed aside. Studios get repurposed, and before you know it, nearly every single team they have is funneling and feeding into the same franchise. That's how Activision ended up abandoning almost all of its IP in just a few years. It's how Blizzard slowly collapsed inward on itself, funneling nearly everything into World of Warcraft, Diablo, and Overwatch, and these aren't the only...
And they're not even doing that well. That's the worst part. They cut Hearthstone. Hearthstone is basically all microtransactions. Diablo is all microtransactions. The only W that Diablo has had was Diablo 2 Remastered, and that was completely outsourced to a different company to remake, and they did a pretty good job and people like it, but at the end of the day, it's still a really old game that got rehashed. So ultimately, that died. StarCraft is dead. Heroes of the Storm fucking died. That exploded. Yeah, Overwatch just sucks too. Like, nobody fucking plays that game. Why would you play Overwatch when you could play Marvel Rivals? I don't know. They don't really have anything, to be honest.
Companies that are doing it. Nearly every single one of them have.
Yeah, Warcraft is dead.
What's happened is, over time, a lot of these companies...
And then this Resident Evil looking ass COD game just released, and everybody made fun of that.
Have just narrowed themselves down to almost nothing. They've turned into these 1 or 2 game Andy operations, and once that happens, everything now revolves around squeezing more out of the exact same franchises. When you don't have anything else to fall back on, the pressure to grow your revenue isn't going to go away. It's just going to concentrate on those games. So instead of experimenting or refreshing your ideas, these guys have just been hyper fixating on monetization, and they've been burning their goodwill by doing.
They gotta put Nicki Minaj into COD again. Yeah, they gotta make a twerk emote. Every time you get it down, you just twerk on him. You know how they have like finishers for you know, when you knife someone right at the end? You can buy a finisher where you like twerk on the corpse. Dude, I'm giving them ideas. No, don't do that, but like that would be kind of fucking sick.
Not all at once, but piece by piece, as these players have started to feel like this relationship has turned more and more transactional.
Yeah.
And once competition tightens and growth slows, the name alone isn't enough anymore. Relevance is going to start bleeding out, and suddenly they realize that they're not going to have an exit because they scrapped every other option they had years ago. I think that's a real problem. These companies have grown too big and too specialized. Audiences only know these guys for one thing, and now they're trapped by it. They can't make anything else because they don't know how to anymore. They can't take the risk to make anything new anymore. So they just keep doubling down on the same thing, not because it works, but because it's the only thing that these guys have left. And every time they do that, it just accelerates the decline even further. We've been watching this.
When was the last time they hit a big, like, franchise? Wasn't it just Overwatch? Yeah, Overwatch was the last big franchise that was original that they popped off on. Yeah, they scrapped some sort of like hunting survival game that got completely duped. They killed a StarCraft thing too. But no, you actually can't count the StarCraft thing. The original IP thing, StarCraft would just be relying on itself. They didn't release another IP. Overwatch is its own thing. No, it is. Remember Project Titan? Well, that's what Project Titan was, what Overwatch became, but it was still an original thing.
Happened
like, they
in
never
real time with
it.
Ubisoft. Year after year, their catalog has shrank. Entire franchises have just been tossed aside, and everything's been funneled into Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. Anything outside of that has barely existed, barely gotten marketed, or it was just shoved into a live service gamble like X-Defiant, or it's a licensed project like Star Wars or Avatar, something just meant to keep the lights on. And as revenue kept sliding, they panicked, and they just...
StarCraft isn't original. It was based off of Warhammer 40K. Yeah, and Warhammer was fucking heavily inspired by fucking Tolkien and fucking Lovecraft and a bunch of historical fucking conflicts that happen in real life. Nothing is original. Shut the fuck up. No one cares.
Tunnel vision even harder into Assassin's Creed, pouring $400 million trillion into it. I can't remember how much these guys spent on it. And then when Shadows failed, well, the floor dropped out underneath these guys, leaving them with the only option of selling off their major franchises to Tencent. Now, normally this is where players will say, okay, these guys just need to pivot. And no, most of these guys can't. They have trained them.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Poopysoft. They only rely on their franchise baby, which is fucking Assassin's Creed. And even then, it fucking sucks. It's sad.
Themselves only to make a handful of games, and they've trained audiences to stop trusting them or to expect anything else. These franchises feel hollow, commercial, and interchangeable. Players feel burned because they actually are burned by a lot of these companies, and that's why the pivot's never going to come. The risk is way too high, and all their credibility is gone.
Yep.
I mean, pick any of these.
I've been saying this since like 2014, I want to say. About Blizzard specifically, like I saw the writing on the wall with World of Warcraft, which was that was their like poster child. Like Blizzard is basically only known for World of Warcraft at this point. StarCraft died way before that, even, I would say. So it's like you see the writing on the wall, and you just watch it crumble.
These companies, sure, you could hype a long-lost IP for a few weeks, but honestly, ask yourself, do you trust any of them to make anything that's actually worth your time or money anymore? Would people actually show up? Would that game actually represent what you want it to represent? Do these guys even know what people want anymore? I need you guys to appreciate how lethal this is for a multi-million-dollar company with tens of thousands of employees that are relying on them, and their entire future hinges on one single game. What happens when Call of Duty is no longer relevant? What happens when Assassin's Creed is no longer moving units? That's what we're seeing right now. It's the floor that's giving out underneath these guys. That's why this industry is panicked right now. These are all expertly bad business decisions carried out by people that on a fundamental level do not understand their audience or the product that they're trying to...
Would you play this game on screen? What's the name of it? I played New World. New World is dead. Like...
push. And the problem is, even if these companies wanted to change, they can't. There's no way. The teams that they had that were making other games are gone. That culture is gone. That talent is gone. And when everything is built around feeding one machine at a massive scale, there's no option to just pivot back to being creative again. Not when you strip that muscle out. You know, I know this myself because I made this exact same mistake on a much smaller scale. Back when I first started the channel, I found success covering just 1 or 2 games, and that's all I ever focused on. And while I found some immediate...
Witchfire was the game on screen? Oh, I thought that was fucking New World for some reason. My bad. It looked like New World. My bad.
Immediate success, that declined because the people were not watching videos for me, they were watching it for the game. So when those games lost relevance, my channel went alongside with it.
Oh my god, he experienced the thing that some streamers have to go through. You guys, okay, how many of you guys really liked a really popular streamer? For example, I don't know, I don't want to name people specifically. Let's say Tyler 1. No, because he went variety. It's a tough one. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you had a favorite game. Say you really loved COD, and there was like a really, really popular streamer, and that's all they played. And when the game started declining, you noticed their views falling off. They didn't do anything wrong. They kept playing the game because they had to. But if they pivoted off of, like, I don't know, doing something else, they would lose viewers. Bunch of DBD streamers. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Ow, I can't believe I didn't think of that. I loved playing DBD. It's like probably like, I don't know, like 2-3 years ago. But then it started really, really falling off. If you look at people streaming, their personality hasn't changed. It's still doing the same content. But at the end of the day, people aren't as interested in playing a certain game. Being a one-trick pony never helps, even in games. Well, it's also really difficult to pivot. Like, it's hard doing variety, too. Like, not everybody can do variety. And the same thing can be said for YouTubers that only focus on one game.
I rebuilt the channel around who I actually am instead of what's happening in, you know, near proximity to me or whatever's temporarily working at the moment. And that worked out for me, but that's the difference. I could rebuild. These guys can't. There's no option for them to be able to. They've trained their teams to only do one thing. And your viewers, too. Like, you can... It's really difficult to diversify the content without taking a massive hit. And, oh, this is actually a really good example. Bellular, we watch his videos from time to time. He used to only cover World of Warcraft.
he started branching out, and he actually made a new channel, or like 2 other channels, where he started doing more broad topics, and initially it took a big hit on his views. I noticed this myself, but the content didn't really change. He was still a well-spoken, scripted guy. He would talk with another guy on the on his like little channel, and eventually he started growing, and people got recommended his videos that weren't necessarily interested in World of Warcraft. He would sprinkle it in there every once in a while as like an analogy, or like a metaphor to like gaming industry and stuff, and like showing examples and numbers. But at the end of the day, people still really liked it, and it resonated with them. Yeah.
Now they're stuck chasing relevance in an industry that's already moved away from them. And on top of that, what else are they going to do? They have no other options left. So no, I don't really think that these companies are going to be able to come back from this. Not only have people moved on from them, but they've also trained audiences to not trust them. And on top of that, there's new competition that's in the market that's already building trust. It's building a reputation for themselves. It's gaining a lot of momentum, and they're not about to hand that back over. So things are going to get rough.
It's the nature of capitalism and competition. That is one thing that capitalism does do, right? Is that it breeds competition. The problem is when you battle the competition by pumping this fat bloated corpse until it explodes, and there's just sticky goop all over your face, and it's like you can't infinitely sustain something that's dead. Like, you just fucking can't. It'll explode eventually. Mark my words, even though I like Dead by Daylight as its core, and people will say, oh, Alana, it's a sucky game. Whatever, I agree. I find it fun sometimes. It's really fun to play with friends and like people that are cool. But at the end of the day, like, you can't sustain it forever. You just can't. Sorry, people are gonna lose interest, they'll move on. Maybe they'll find a replacement. Maybe they'll find a completely different game that they just don't like. And you can say that the same thing with YouTubers and streamers.
Oh, I gotta say. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. I talk all week on Twitter, usually in like one-word sentences, something very catchy that gets a bunch of likes. I'm farming right now.
He's farming!
Make me more popular. Subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe.
Thanks.
I'll catch you in the next one.
Family. That was great. I like this guy. I like his attitude. He's not like a doomer, like outright. He presents facts. He's really cool. Yeah, he's digestible. I like it. And also, he's realistic. Yeah, he's a realist. And he wants what's best for people. Like, I hate the people that are also whining and saying like, oh, Alana, you're such a doomer. You fucking hate video games. Like, yeah, there's a lot of great games out there, but I think it could be better. I think so. There's obviously amazing games.